Hey, I'll tell you what, Barry. Yeah. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. If I could get you to please head back to your seats if you're not there already. Hopefully you've all had a chance to enjoy your main course, but it is at that time where we need to move into the next part of our event this afternoon. So for those who would like to throw a question to Stuart at some point, time permitting, I'll just explain how to use the Slido app. I'm sure many of you will have used Slido before. If you haven't, it's pretty straightforward. And to get into the session that we're in this afternoon, you can either just point your phone at the QR code, which is up on the screens there, or if you don't want to use the QR code, you need to go to the website Slido, slido.com, and the code that you need is also up on the screen there, 24AUG for August, and that will take you to Slido. You can submit a question, you can put your name to it, you can do it anonymously, you can also endorse someone else's question and bump it up the list. So I'll remind you again once we get into the Q&A part of our presentation. All right. I'll just ask if we could please lower the volume just a smidge. Wow, magic. Thank you very much. Okay, it's my great pleasure now to introduce our guest speaker for you this afternoon. A mining engineer by profession, Stuart Tonkin leads the team at Northern Star Resources, the largest Australian gold producer listed on the ASX. He's a graduate from the WA School of Mines and holds a WA First Class Mine Manager Certificate. He's a passionate advocate for his sector and a sponsor of the next generation of industry leaders. Stuart joined Northern Star as the Chief Operating Officer back in 2013. He was promoted to CEO in 2016 and to Managing Director in 2021. During his time with the company, he's played a leading role in the company's growth to become an industry leader, employer of choice, and a member of the ASX 50. So would you please welcome Stuart Tonkin, and as he makes his way up to the stage, a short video to show you about Northern Star. Thank you.
Anyone looking to join and work for Northern Star, I'd recommend that you don't hesitate.
What are you waiting for? You need to jump on the wagon. Northern Star offers a lot of opportunities, they offer a lot of training. If I were back home looking at where I would want to work, I would really go for Northern Star.
Working here at KCGM, an experience of a lifetime for someone who's working in the mines.
I can see myself growing in confidence, and I have to thank my team for that, but I also like to thank the company and all the staff for giving me the opportunity.
It really comes down to the culture and people, a diverse, inclusive, and also empowered workforce.
Everyone that I've worked under has really helped me out, really given me a lot of guidance and made sure that I had as much learning opportunity as possible.
The career growth, the progression, and also the development along the way, the company really invests in you.
Northern Star's core values:
Safety,
Teamwork,
accountability,
respect,
and results.
There you go, that's the promo, that's where to apply. Look, it is absolute pleasure to be presenting to the West Australian Mining Club here today. And I actually feel amongst friends in this very friendly resources community, so pretty at ease. And I'm going to give you some context, a bit of a chat, and then we're going to sit down and Tim's going to hit a fireside Q&A. So get onto the Slido and hit me some curly ones. I'm up for it. Look, today I definitely want to provide to you some insights into essentially the ingredients that requires us to maintain a very healthy resource industry and to set the scene for this discussion. And I will talk about Northern Star Resources because I'm very proud of the success of the company and why I'm encouraged by the opportunities that this sector essentially has in the future ahead of us. And I also want to highlight some reasons why this room should be very, very optimistic, including you, Barry. Very optimistic. Be optimistic. Look, we are positioned, Northern Star is positioned as an ASX 50 company. We're a top 10 global gold producer. We sit here today with decades of outlook in our mine lives backed on multi-million ounce resource bases. And we're very fortunate that those locations that we operate are in very low risk tier 1 jurisdictions. And I want to actually go through some of the details today of how that's come about. And essentially, we've built this company today that we hold, which is on a very, very deliberate strategy. So I'm going to give a bit of insights into how we've formed and how we've achieved this. And firstly, I'll talk to our purpose, Northern Star's purpose. And this might sound like a bit of corporate speak and a bit of spiel, but we're going to go through this. The purpose of Northern Star is to generate superior returns for its shareholders. Now, you're going to think that's pretty capitalist, right? But that actually is the purpose of a company. That is what a company should do, make a profit. And then with that profit, you get the opportunity to do lots and lots of great stuff. You get to reinvest in your communities. You get to obviously decarb, all the things that we're working on to improve our futures and society comes off the back of the health, the financial health of those businesses. So I don't think we should be ashamed of or be step away from being profitable. That's what companies should do. So our purpose is absolutely to deliver superior returns for our shareholders. And it goes on to say, to the benefit of all stakeholders and through our operational excellence, through our exploration and through active portfolio management. That's what Northern Star essentially thinks about. When you look at the gold sector, there's actually not a lot of levers you can pull to create value. So gold price, yes, it goes up and down, but it's out of our control. The things that we can do to create value in a gold company, we can drop our unit costs, okay? We can drive down our unit costs. We can increase our production, how much gold we produce, or we can extend life. They're the only three things really in our toolkit to generate and derive value for a gold company. And that's been the key focus for Northern Star Resources to generate those superior returns. So I presented last to the West Australian Mining Club in 2018, 6 years ago. And ironically, as a mining engineer, I was talking a lot about exploration. And that exploration was key to us because we had acquired a portfolio of assets that perceivably from the majors that sold them to us had a very short reserve life on paper. So if you recall, we had Paulson's as one mine. We bought Plutonic, we bought Kanowna Belle, Kundana, Jundee, South Kalgoorlie, West Tanami, Central Tanami. We started to accumulate these assets, but they had very finite reserve lives. So we had a very aggressive approach to brownfields exploration, addressing that life element of how do we generate value. But the other way to generate value is not just to find ounces, but is to buy ounces. And that's always the equation that we've been trying to work on to make sure that we can do both accretively. And look, fundamentally, that portfolio, we got really fussy, we got really focused on what we termed back then the 5 Gs. And I don't know if you get your own Gs or 5G when you go down to Busselton and try and get your phone to hit there, but it's starting with geology. Geology being for us the best areas to discover gold, okay, the right rocks. We went into grade because we were focusing on underground high-grade deposits. Geometry to efficiently extract that shape in a mining method that could get your lowest unit cost. We looked at the geography. Where are these things located? Can we operate? Do we want to operate in these locations? And the final G was government around the legislation and the rules, hopefully they don't change, that are transparent and known and you can work within. And that fussy approach got us really focused, and it has been the success of why Northern Star is what it is today. Very deliberate strategy to get into those locations. So 6 years on, from 2018 when I presented to this club, we are essentially 6 times the resource base. We're over 61 million ounces of gold. We've got 20 million ounces of reserves of gold. Our market cap is 6 times the size. We're at $7.5 billion market cap. We've got 7,000 employees working in and around our mines in Australia and in Alaska. So the formula does work. And what I want to start with, that we can go into Q&As on the what. What is the ingredients that has allowed us to achieve this? And it's for every resource operator out there. It's not just gold. And it's pretty simple. Minerals, maths, and motivation. So the minerals part for us is gold, something we can sell. If we don't have any gold, we're closed. The maths part is the smarts, the theory, the modelling. It is the assumptions we put in for the business case to say there is a plan that is profitable, going back to the purpose of the business. But the final piece is key that a lot of people don't have because they get stuck in theory land, is the motivation to actually go and do it. Someone actually has to go and do the work. And that's something I'm proud of our team, 7,000 employees and contractors. We're not afraid of hard work. They roll up their sleeves, they get involved, and they go and do that work. And that's fundamental to it. So the minerals, the maths, and the motivation is the what we've done. You might ask now, how? How do you do that? It all sounds fancy, it's still theoretical, but the how part, you saw a bit of it on the slide as we videoed in, is our culture. And our culture is derived by our core values, and you saw them up on the screen earlier. So they are safety, teamwork, accountability, respect, and results. Not many companies put results up there as their core values. I don't know why. I don't understand it. We want an outcome. We don't need the practice. So what's really important to us is what we get an outcome and we chase those results. And the safety, teamwork, accountability and respect is essentially the rules in which we operate to deliver that result. So it's the part that makes us sustainable. It's the part that makes us responsible and essentially gives us that licence to operate in the communities in which we operate. So I've given you 5 Gs, I've given you 3 Ms, I've given you our STAR core values. There's lots of just, again, management speak in there. But essentially they are the things we keep going back to try to distill and simplify our thinking about what matters and really get that focus in the business. So for us to essentially maintain this healthy industry, stay optimistic, be clear on your purpose, obviously focus on those ingredients, those very important ingredients on minerals, maths and motivation. And essentially, let's really support and foster a fantastic culture that we really aspire to have here in Western Australian resource sector, because this gets exported around the world, and we can make a massive difference beyond this room and this state. We go back to some of the the great things with the mining camps, etc. That's something that is really important. But when you look at the demographic of Western Australia, there's about 2.6 million people here in WA. The resource skill set is about 130 odd thousand. So it's only 5% of the population in the resource sector. So we don't need to go out and find a lot more people to come and help us. We just need 95% of the state to not hate us. And this is a really key differentiator, is we need to be the solution for what people need, because we understand how important it is. So with that, I think Tim's going to come up here and start firing on some Q&A. And I'll leave you with one of my favourite quotes, and I don't even know if I made it. I tried to Google it to see if someone else claimed it, but I'll claim it. Optimists achieve everything, and pessimists achieve nothing. And the way I think about this is that you must think in an optimistic lens and view to find the solutions and keep trying and keep going back to try and fix stuff. Because when you are in that pessimistic frame of mind, you are self-sabotaging your effort or your thinking towards finding the solution. So that's something that we often test ourselves on. You have to test yourself on that daily, in the morning or the evening, or on the year, or when you're looking at decisions. But essentially we need to move ourselves from those options into decisions and then fundamentally into action. So with that, Tim, come up and fire away.
Thank you, Stuart. Already got a few questions coming in on the Slido app, so please keep them coming. I can't promise I'll get to all of them or even that many of them, but we'll do our best. Hard to know where to start. Let's talk about your record dividend you announced last week and your profit results, given that's a fairly recent thing. Congratulations on that, obviously. You're talking about Australia's reputation on the world stage and obviously the central core value of the business to provide returns to shareholders. What's the global view on Australian gold at the moment, where it's at? And
the sentiment obviously is good, the gold price is high. Dividends important, but people don't expect gold companies to pay dividends. All it is recognition of a return on the capital where we're borrowing off shareholders, right? So it's relatively, a couple of small percent. They don't own a gold company for yield, but it shows the health of a business. For you to generate cash cash is king. My previous contracting background was always driven on cash accounts. Fundamentally, if you don't have cash, you can't reinvest in your business. You can't build cash, you can't pay dividends, do buybacks, all those things. It's a fundamental health signal of a really complete, mature business.
Part of your success story, of course, has been extracting, value and productivity out of your 7,000 strong workforce. How do you do that? You've got the values there, obviously, that you try hard to instill and adhere to. How do you keep that 7,000 strong workforce focused, particularly when you've also got to balance a combination, given where your sites are, a combination of FIFO and also Dido?
Yeah, look, they make me look good, by the way, those 7,000 people. That's not my credit. It was really interesting because the formation of our values and the transpose of those sort of simplistic models came from us integrating through Intrepid, Barrick, Newmont, Sumitomo, Westgold. We started bringing teams that already had a historic view, and often it's just not the company and the name on the shirt, but it's also that mine. The mindset of mines that have been through multiple owners, but they were the same employees. So we didn't try to shove Northern Star down their throat, is probably the way to say it. And it was about, what do you want out of it? What's the negotiation or the deal that incentivises and rewards you to do good stuff? And it's really around that alignment. We wanted people pulling in the same direction, and it was about listening and understanding. And one of the simplest questions you ask when you can go into the field is, what's holding you up? Because they'll just give you all the answers to all the constraints that's someone else's fault. But also, you actually can hear that and work out whether it's valid or not. And if it's not, you can say, well, that's actually not holding you up. That's a really important step in the cycle. Or secondly, you can say, I'm going to go and find out and remove that from you to make your day easier. So there's always this engagement with the staff that our leaders, we get out in the field and we listen.
When you go to your individual sites, do they have their own identity, or is there some consistency, something that sort of threads all of them together? Do they have their own vibe, or
they absolutely
do you know you're on a Northern Star site when you get there?
Look, I think you should, you do, and I think, look, absolutely there's a healthy competition, and I think neatly because of the size and scale of our assets, sometimes there's, whether it's intra-quarter, intra-year, intra-week, there's a pecking order, and they just love to, Pogo last quarter, 91,000 ounces, right? The run rate, 360,000 ounces. It's taken us 6 years to do that, but gee, they were out there flying the flag, and that's our US team that's done that, and that's been a massive effort. So I think, yes, there is one homogenous brand, but ultimately we allow a lot more autonomy within our teams, because otherwise you don't get innovation and you don't get those new ideas coming in if you just try to cookie cut a plan.
Part of your extraordinary story at Northern Star is this ability to breathe new life into assets that were either unloved or on the scrap heap, coming to the end of their life cycle. Would you say that that's the company's really kind of unique skill, to be able to extract value out of assets that were, to others, considered to be almost done?
Look, it was one of the formation skills, and it certainly has paid off.
Yeah.
But it comes back to that lens of the mineral maths motivation is, these are multi-million ounce systems. It should be of no surprise to anybody here that you find 1 million ounces next to 10 million ounces, if you look. And your ability to then cut the maths or the mining productivities to make the costs right, to make the margin. You might just say gold price floats a lot of boats and makes some of these ore bodies management proof. We certainly picked up assets that were beyond that management proof state. We had strong views on what we could do with it. We took that balanced risk and we put in the effort and drove the motivation. So it's absolutely in our DNA, and our owner-operator teams, the Northern Star Mining Services underground contracting pedigree that we've developed and use, they're great things that sort of show it all the way through the process.
What is it that you have, though, that allows you to see the value in a project that others have essentially given up?
Look, it is that optimism. I think there is obviously technical views. I mean, we were in this room here, I think a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't this big. I had probably a third of it. We had 200 Northern Star geologists in this room talking about all their ideas from projects, exploration, greenfields, all the way through to growing resource bases on the brownfields that were there. It was the Brains Trust. 2/3 of our geology team in here thinking about. They do that annually. We do an EngFest, GFS. We get all the teams and the smarts together, I can get those sort of ideas off anybody. So we look through what's different, or why do we look at these things. I think just don't throw stuff out. Recycle, reuse. You know, it's pretty special to discover a deposit. You know, we shouldn't just run away from it. It's much easier to close a mine than to keep it open, and I think that's what you need, is that optimism to keep going back to it.
One of the previous half owners of the Kalgoorlie site, for instance, I know is a tenant in the building that you're in. Is that ever awkward when you get in the lift and you know, one of those previous owners that is essentially kind of committed to walking away from, you know, from the super pit? You know, you walk in there and you're like, oh, thanks for selling us that, by the way.
It can feel awkward. I think probably not as awkward as Jundee, but look, I'm pleased to say that you know, the team that come across are the ones that did the work and saw the opportunity as well. There's different reasons at different times that people sell assets, and I think it's in the right hands today. It's you know, the combination, and I talked to you about when we got to the super pit, but obviously on the back of that, with the merger with Saracen and bringing in those assets, and obviously Pogo, the acquisition in Alaska, these were all things that previous owners, you know, basically had. The computer said no, effectively. The mine plan just said, you know, our decision planning business is 2 years or 3 years and the mine life's shorter, therefore sell.
Yeah.
And typically it's a sale to avoid closure costs, but for our aspect it was, well, we're never going to close it, so let's just get on with it and drill.
Yeah. Let's talk about your personal story a little bit. We have something in common.
We do.
Not much,
We
but
do.
both a couple of
Hillbillies.
Yeah. Les Moody products who decided to wander down the hill and see what goes on in the valley.
Yeah, I only just learnt this, but I did grow up in the hills here, up at Les Moody, and
yeah,
you know, I might have come across you throwing rocks at you or something.
I probably delivered a local newspaper to your house. You get 2 sets of paper.
We used to stack them up and set fire to them.
It was a hard way to make $4, I can tell you.
It was really good days growing up in the hills, pretty much free ranging as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, on your BMX bike at the back of Mundaring, Pickering Brook, you know,
Yeah.
Big Valley, Carmel, all those areas. Yeah, we had a lot of freedom, and I respected that outdoors lifestyle. And that's sort of when the appeal came or the opportunity came. That's what got me into this type of job.
Yeah. Well, tell us about what got you interested in mining, because you know you're at Les Moody Senior High School, not really sure what you're going to do with your life, and then along comes a chemistry teacher who encourages you to go and pursue this mining thing.
Yeah, so I got put onto this one of these mining camps. So the Focus on Mining camp, you know, in your school holidays, go to Kalgoorlie for 4 days, and I came back convinced. You know, it was 35 years ago. I was you know, young kid, didn't understand mining whatsoever. Had never didn't have any family in mining. And didn't know about it. And I was being pushed by the family down the medical route.
Yep.
And I ripped all those pages out of the study book and said, they're not jobs for me. And I was thinking engineering, and then this went to Kalgoorlie and came back, and mining engineering was just it. And that chemistry teacher, you know, he used to make touch powder and blow stuff up and inspire us to mix things that probably shouldn't be mixed. When I got to Kalgoorlie and saw it in action, it was one way.
Yeah. Do you ever stop and think, what would I be doing with my life if I hadn't have had that opportunity as
Certainly don't.
As a teenager?
I've never, look, it was actually one of those views where I will do that now until I find something better, and I haven't found anything better. Like having traveled the world, and you know, I really enjoy what I do, and I enjoy seeing what we can do in this sector.
Yeah, those camps are so important, aren't they? And I know Barry is keen to hear from anyone who would like to continue sponsoring those mining camps, but Northern Star does as well.
Look, we do.
Your motivation to do that, is that partly coming from your own?
Look, it's one of the things where we recognise, like, it's getting that familiarity, that the knowledge in front of, you know, West Australian kids that might not know. So until you actually get out to these areas like Kalgoorlie or otherwise, even the Pilbara, you might do it on holiday, but most of our holidays are on the coast, right? There's not too many mines on the coast. You might go through a port town. You might just see Hyde visit the airport and think it's annoying. So it's about that the appeal of that 95% of the people liking us and thinking we're important, and you know, being friendly chat around the barbecue rather than, oh, you're in mining. Getting some of that understanding back into it.
Yeah. You've got some fairly strong views on education, haven't you? Stuart, particularly, particularly at the kind of posh single-sex education style. Being a proud product of Les Moody Senior High School. Yeah. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
We were having a conversation before where this is leading to, I can see where it's leading. Look, it probably answers the question I've been asked often through media and through forums like this around diversity and inclusion. And I focus heavily on, and we in the company focus on the inclusion part. The diversity will be what it is, but in my head is like take away barriers and focus on important things that support people feeling welcome and really honing in on that respect piece that we can all have ideas and share them. When you mention diversity and speak about it, you are identifying differences. And often when you identify differences, you focus on, it creates conflicts. When you talk about differences, it might start off fun, but it turns into an argument or a difference and you start moving away. And that's, when you talk about diversity, that's often where you can land. You can say, oh, we appreciate diversity in a diverse range of things. Humans don't. So what you need to talk about is what you have in common. No matter how diverse you are, what's the common thing that brings you together? And that's what I want to focus on, that inclusion part. So when it goes to gender diversity, as a company, we are responsible to solve this now in the resource sector. And I get stuck with the professionals in that space that have come out of private schools, running C-suite jobs in corporations generally. They haven't been introduced to the other gender until they've left high school. So why is that? Like, let's not just do it here. Like, let's go back and have co-ed all the way through and solve those things on a smaller level. And I don't know, there's old boys, old girls theories around the brand or where you come from. I love to tell people I came from Les Moody High School. I reckon probably 15 people from my year went to university. I was the head boy because no one would do it. And it wasn't, you just run from, I was Switzerland, as a bit of a ginger nerd, I had to just be diplomatic and move around and play Switzerland. And that's important, whether you've got sisters and brothers, all these things that help you develop your views and your thoughts and ground you early. Hence why my thing around why do we have single set schools? I've heard the arguments, I've heard the focus and attention. Anyway.
Yeah. All good skills to learn at a young age now as you're trying to get 7,000 people to pull in the one direction. Yeah. Away from mining, how do you unwind? Do you unwind? Do you exercise your right to disconnect?
Oh, yeah, I got that the other week. Had a lot of conversations about that. And my only view on that was whether you're allowed to disconnect from that during your day anyway. But I think we said earlier, I've got what I call my reef and beef lifestyle. Okay, so if I get any time, short time, a day or two, I can go south to a cattle farm that I've had as a hobby, give my kids that Les Moody bush outlook and light a fire, set a rocket off, chase some cows around a paddock, drive a car, all the sort of stuff that you got to do as a kid. And then if we get a few more days, we head up to Exmouth and hit the Ningaloo Reef and love that outdoors camping lifestyle, healthy lifestyle. If I get even more time, hence maybe why we bought a mine in Alaska, and go hit some snow and go snowboarding, that would be beautiful. That'd be the perfect year.
Yeah. Was that your motivation for buying an asset in Alaska?
No, I was anti-snowline. It was a place you go for holiday, not for mining, but it is proven to be a special asset, and it's a keeper, that Pogo mine.
Back to, again, your younger years, another product of the WA School of Mines in Kalgoorlie. You're a mining engineering student. I can't imagine you do much hands-on mining engineering anymore. Do you miss that?
I don't think I did much hands-on mining engineering. I thought I did, but I actually look back at some of the things I designed, and this is the beauty about mining engineering. It is actually more art than science. Because I did look at civil, mechanical, electrical, all the real pure, get a handbook out, follow a rule. There's properties associated with steel and concrete. Mining, you can just, in the 80-20 or 20-80, you can just have a crack. So I loved my time underground in a team as a young person that was learning, but also people with decades my senior would ask me my opinion. And it wasn't because you're an engineer or whatever, but it was because you were doing a job together. and they would ask you, and you had involvement, and that's what I really feel value was the influence on those things. So I took that through my view on leadership and inclusion, on people's views and points around how we get stuff done as you bring people together and get the best ideas and you generate it. So do I miss it? There were, what are your favourite jobs? I thought, charge up was pretty good, getting to blow things up. Shift bossing was probably one of my most favourable jobs, running a crew underground on night shift when you're in charge and you saw direct response for your effort. But I've enjoyed every part of the technical designs, the planning, the scheduling, the managing, all that stuff. I've enjoyed just seeing a product.
When you're sitting there in class back in the day, and the super pit's just a few k's down the road, do you remember what you thought of, the golden mile of Kalgoorlie at the time? Because of course you now oversee that whole thing. It's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it, to think that you were sitting just down the road from it?
A few in the room here I can see that studied with us in those days, and the lecture theatres would vibrate, on the blasts in the afternoons. I certainly, again, as a fair-skinned engineer, wanted to go underground and get out of the sun, and so open pit wasn't my focus. And that was apparent that the super pit was there, but gee, we've heard for 30 years that it's closing, right? We've heard over and over and over that it's nearly there. Well, it's not there. It's not ending. And I can tell you, in 100 years, there will be activity at that golden mile. In 100 years, I guarantee it. There's more gold in the ground than has come out of that. So I'm just a caretaker at the moment of passing the baton on to the next leg of that asset's life. And I think we're very proud to have combined Northern Star and Saracen to get that asset under single ownership, importantly, and then Australian ownership for the first time really in its history. Alan Bond put it together as the Consolidated Gold Mines, but it's been sitting in that joint venture structure without people that necessarily liked each other. Going back to that comment between Barrick and Newmont, both Tom Palmer.
I was
and
careful
Mark
not to
Bristow,
name them.
No, I know, but they're right. I know them well. Both Mark Bristow and Tom Palmer would credit that Northern Star are better operators in that environment on those type of assets than they are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean they're bad or otherwise, or that asset's good or bad. It just means it's in the right things. And I think they took also pride in ensuring when they sold things, they sold it to people that would improve or invest and do things, as did Sumitomo do. So I think it's a credit to those major companies to not just dump and run. They actually think hard about their people and the stewardship of that asset into the next leg of its life.
You're in a phenomenal position at the moment and self-funding your expansion plans as well. I know there's a question in the slide already about the outlook for the next 6 to 12 months. What do you see the outlook for Northern Star and for the gold price generally?
Look, we're in the middle of a very, very busy organic growth profile. So yeah, we're investing a lot of money. Obviously, the Fimiston Mill expansion is probably the key project underway. I'm just loving the fact we're net cash. We're delivering growth in production. We're delivering into an all-time gold price, and we're able to fund all of that activity, plus grow dividends, plus do share buybacks. All those things that are available to a healthy, mature business. You shouldn't get too far ahead of yourself. Like you should always, put hay in the shed for those seasons that aren't so good. And we do risk lens, the optionality around gold price up, gold price down, discovery, success or otherwise. So I think you should do that. But I think the next couple of years for this business just get better and better. It's due to a lot of the work that's happened in the last few years. It's a 5-year strategy. And we're really over hump year, and we're getting into the good times.
Hope so. You've maintained this singular focus on gold. Are there any plans at all to diversify, or are you just sticking with gold?
Look, the ground on which we have a lot of the greenstone belts just give us gold. I'm not adverse to other commodities, and that's why I talk about mineral maths and motivation, not just gold, because it works. We've got nickel, we've got lithium, we've got, there's different things on our ground, but I think what our investors invest in and what we focus on and what we're good at is that gold focus. So, a lot of the gold players, or actually all the gold players other than us, have copper in their portfolios. And it's important because they can describe the purpose and use of that copper for them. And I think it's also helpful in their all-in sustaining costs that they can have a negative cost, which is actually a revenue. For those that don't know what a negative cost is revenue from your copper that you subsidise your gold and say that you've got cheaper gold.
Yep.
We don't have that opportunity, but we're agnostic, I guess, when it comes to making money. We're a business first, and that's really what we'll go.
All right, I might get to some of the questions. Thank you to those who've submitted questions so far. There are a lot of them. Most popular question, the top of the pile, is Jordan Pedley's question. What's the one thing you do to keep yourself accountable to being optimistic?
Oh, that is a good question. To keep yourself accountable to it. Look, you've got to shrug off anything that is a negative view or thought or a reason not to do something. You've got to close that off, because it doesn't help you do anything. That instant thought of why you can't do something isn't helpful for you. So then it's just about the problem solving, the iterations that you go through in your head about. You see that as a reason or a hurdle to then solve for. So I don't consciously say, I feel optimistic or I feel pessimistic. I just see that any barrier or reason that someone gives me, it's almost like I feel compelled that I have to solve that. And that's embedded in our team, the approach to removing barriers. So yeah, it's a good way to say, like, you don't wake up in the day and go, oh, well, I'm on my second coffee and I'm feeling good. You have to make sure that you don't let things, or just really test why you can't do something.
Yep. This one could be a chunky answer if you really put your mind to it, but it's right at the top of the list as well. In your opinion, what is the biggest threat to the Australian mining sector right now?
Look, I would temper it a bit, because the things around the threats, it's this open closed, and I think, Jimmy Byer's going to give you some insights in the next sitting here, because it can be binary. But as a global part, it's that risk of the flight of capital. It's the changes of the rules that are sudden. Now you need business planning runway. So as those sort of things start to modify and change, companies need time. And what the nation doesn't quite realise is the money will go. It'll leave Australia. It'll go somewhere else. And there's nations that are inviting investment and relaxing and fast-tracking things to invite that investment. So sadly, we'll miss out if we're not too careful. Now, I want also to say that the mining sector respects and preserves and looks after heritage. It looks after communities. Like, this isn't a binary thing saying we just want to go ahead and dig holes wherever we want. We need to really highlight that we are world-class in protecting things that matter. And yes, there's some times where these things haven't gone well, but look at all the times it's gone great, and look at the governance and the structures in place in Australia that's protecting those ideal things, to the point where we are asked to export that skill set internationally, and we're invited into lots of nations to bring and transpose that Australian outlook. So
yep.
I don't see, the risk is always there. It's commodity cycles, it's prices, it's up and down, it's government change, sovereign risk, but we're in a pretty good place here in Western Australia.
Yep. Just finally, because I think Cass is, she's in wind-up mode over there. She's smiling, but I know she's not really smiling. The deal that has made the biggest difference to Northern Star being where it is today?
The deal. Look, it'd have to be the acquisition of Paulson's. We were an exploration company, and Bill had the foresight to as a mining engineer, turn the company into a production. So instead of a cost centre of spending money drilling holes in the ground, an asset that actually generated cash that then could self-fund and drill and extend that. So I can talk about KCGM or talk about Pogo or those things that have made a difference along the journey, but that early establishment of moving from exploration to producer, they recapitalised the company and they bought that mine with, I think, 7 months of debt with 6 months of mine life.
Yeah.
So you talk about courage and conviction and backing yourself. I reckon that was the deal that really made us who we are. And then the DNA from that, the Northern Star Mining Services, the approach and the partnering with our contract partners, the cooperation and the transpose of that onto each asset we did afterwards just got better and better and better, because we took those learnings into each of those things. So that's probably the most defining deal. And if you go back through our ASX announcements, there's so many deals that this company's done over the journey. Not all good ones, by the way, but we still, it's about getting, you know, more the good ones outweigh the not so good ones.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your position you're in at the moment. It's quite extraordinary. I think Danny's going to come up and lectern free for a vote of thanks. Thank you for all of the questions that came in. Apologies for those I didn't get to, particularly the person who asked how Stuart would implement your 3Ms to try to save the Dockers. We didn't get to that one, but I appreciate the question anyway. So shout out to whoever that person is who submitted that question. But yeah, many more we didn't get to. I apologise for that. Thank you, Danny.
No, thank you. Thanks, Stu. Great to hear that you're back after 6 years. I did have a few people in the room that asked me the last time you spoke, so I didn't actually have that particular date, so thank you. The ingredients of the company and the purpose to generate and deliver superior returns, which I clearly outlined in my speech of $1.8 billion in revenue, $1.8 billion in cash earnings and revenue of 4.29. Your fussy, deliberate approach of geology, grade, geometry, geography and government, and that culture is at the core of what NSR stands for. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.